Hi, my name is Travis Lindsay. I'm here for the Center for Entrepreneurship at Cal State Fullerton. And with me today is one of our alumni, Ray Fuentes. Ray, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, Travis, thank you for having me today, sir. Happy Taco Tuesday. My name is Ray Fuentes. I am happily married with a beautiful daughter and wife. I'm the first to go to college in my family. I graduated way back in 2012 as a 24-year-old with bright-eyed and a lot of dreams. I was fortunate to have started my first company actually called Rosa Packs inside the entrepreneurship program at Cal State Fullerton. So that was my first taste of really tapping into cross-border payments, having to work with manufacturers on the other side of the world using platforms like Alibaba way back in 2012 when it was just a few images representing each manufacturer and broken translation. It was rough, but I had a dream, and it all started because of Professor John Bradley Jackson. I can go into detail in a little bit about that in a little later, but I started that backpack company. Well, how about I go into it? I had this idea for Rosa Packs, which is a philanthropic backpack company inspired by my family. We adopted a one-year-old when I was 18. It's funny, I told this story at the alumni gathering this weekend, but I saw through the experience of my parents adopting this one-year-old of all the opportunities that they provided me throughout my youth and childhood, and seeing the life that this foster child had before being adopted by my family was night and day. And so, and then seeing where she's at now, she's 20, I think she's 21, she's 20 years old. And she is now a professional golfer teaching people, young and adult individuals how to golf over in Las Vegas. I think she's doing an internship in Colorado, but regardless, the trajectory of her life is significantly different, and it's all defined by the opportunities that my parents had provided her. So I said, hey, what if I could mimic that same effort that they did for this foster child and do this for at-risk youth throughout Orange County, and by virtue of selling backpacks and donating proceeds towards taking these foster kids on field trips. So I come to the very first day at Cal State Fullerton of my senior year in professor's class, and I say, hey, Professor, I have this idea for Rosa Packs. And he goes, wow, Ray, this is a really great idea. How about you present this business idea to your peers in the class and see if anybody would like to work on it with you? And so I went back home and I had prototypes made of t-shirts pressed on with the template logos. And I show up to class and I give this pitch, heartfelt, and I asked if anybody would like to join me, and if so, raise your hand. And nobody raised their hand, Travis. And so that was my real big first taste of rejection. And that wasn't the only rejection that I've received throughout my entrepreneurial journey. It's constant. So from an entrepreneur speaking to the entrepreneurs that may be tuning in today, rejection is 100% part of the process, and we just need to get over it. So anyways, that company was short-lived. We still took out over 200 foster kids on field trips, deep sea fishing trips, doing slap shots at the Staples Center before the Kings game. So a lot of really fun stuff. People took notice of all that effort, and said, and that's where I transitioned into the insurance industry, where I sold insurance to small, medium, and large businesses throughout Orange County and abroad. And I did that for 10 years. I got to see all the passion that all these other entrepreneurs had on the other side of the seat of the table. So through that decade, I was still had that fire for entrepreneurship. I was developing my book of business and insurance. COVID hit, and things became very different. By that time, though, there was a lot of volatility in the market, Travis. So I took heed to my investment thesis, and I said, hey, if I'm investing into disruptive technology like blockchain, fintech, things that are moving the needle on the transformation of finance and artificial intelligence, just the world as we know it, I said, I need to apply this mindset to even my employment. And so I said, who's investing or backing not only blockchain, but new insurance firms, insure tech firms. And so I followed my investment thesis. I landed at a Peter Thiel-backed insurance firm called Newfront, which was the same insurance firm that insured Ripple Labs, a company that I'm very passionate about and that I invest in very heavily. And so I felt like I was right at home. And I did very well at that insurance firm. I got flown up to San Francisco. I'm having a dinner right across from the C-suite team, like we're having a discussion right now, Travis. And they said, Ray, what are you passionate about? What do you tell us about yourself? We don't know anything about you. You just did very well, and now you're on our radar. And I said, well, check this out. I've been investing in this digital asset called XRP. You can use this to deploy liquidity into these new investment applications called Linqto, and I can invest in Ripple Labs, yada, yada, yada. And then the C-suite executive goes, Ray, take a deep breath. Yeah, we know Ripple Labs. They're our client. Brad Garlinghouse, the gentleman who I was speaking to, he's like, that's one of my best friends. We've gone to many concerts together. And I said, oh, okay, great. I know I'm on the right path then. And but within a month, I was then working at Linqto, that very application that I was showing those guys all about at the table. And so that's when I transitioned to private equity, to the same application that I had deployed a significant amount of capital on. And I then became the face of that company, Linqto, where they are doing some very transformative things to level the playing field, allowing accredited investors or everyday investors like myself to invest into the private equity of transformative private tech companies. I mean, you're buying SPVs, special purpose vehicles, but those represent the underlying equity. And then so when there's let's just say a liquidity event like an IPO, which Coinbase was once on their platform, or Robinhood. So when there's an IPO, those shares get pushed to your preferred brokerage account, or you can liquidate on the platform and then reinvest. So then I learned all about private equity through that experience. And then here we are, fast forward to, I'm now 37 years old. I run my own media agency where I talk about all these new transformative companies like Linqto or other companies in the space that are moving the needle in finance. And I have my own YouTube channel around these very pillars: entrepreneurship, investment, lifestyle. And most recently, I interviewed Professor John Bradley Jackson about, I would say about a month ago on my channel. So for those in the audience that want to tune into a really interesting interview, I suggest you do so. But then also just this past week, Travis, I did film and make some content around the alumni gathering. And I also made a video, and that's also up recently on my YouTube channel. So I really have nothing but love and respect for John Bradley Jackson, Cal State Fullerton, and the opportunities that you guys have created for me, or the entrepreneurial spirit that was engraved because of Cal State Fullerton. So again, this interview means a lot to me, and I really appreciate the opportunity to just share my story.
Well, that's great. And I think you covered everything. So we're done here, Ray. I mean, you can go back. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I know. I'm sorry. Would you give me the mic? I'm going to run, but
no, this is great. This is great. Yeah, no, this is perfect. So there's a bunch of different ways that we could go with this. So let's stick with the last thing first, the alumni event, your interview with JJ. There's a bunch of stuff that's been going on with you with Cal State Fullerton. And then I also have to mention, you said you're 37 now. You're 37. Still young. I'm ancient. I just turned 40. I'm basically dead. So I mean, you've got 3 more good years. So that's great.
So I better enjoy them, is what you're saying.
Yeah, no, it just all falls downhill once you hit 40. I mean, everything just fell apart.
I started noticing that at 30, when all of a sudden, where's that pain coming from?
Yeah, no, I mean, it just ramps up at 40, and it's instant. I've only been 40 for about 6 days now, and my life's just falling apart.
Well, so, happy belated birthday, Travis.
Thanks. I appreciate it. It's more like a wake now, I guess, for how much longer I have. So the alumni event, I live in Texas. I wasn't able to attend. Tell everybody a little bit about it, and just give everybody some insight into what happened.
Yeah, the alumni gathering was, I would say, very interesting. That was truthfully my first time attending an alumni event like that. I've been to a few different SoCal entrepreneurship events hosted by Cal State Fullerton, but a very, I would say, intimate type of experience where you're able to meet and brush elbows with, I would say there was about 1 to 150 people that were in the room, from alumni from the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. And then, I mean, there was even recent graduates that were just coming out of even the Entrepreneurship Accelerator program. So when there was the opportunity, after John Bradley Jackson, Professor John Jackson, had had the mic and shared some really interesting insights around entrepreneurship, which I made sure that I captured those moments and put them on my most recent YouTube video. The mic was then given to anybody who wanted to chat. So that's when I followed suit to other brave individuals that got up in front of those 100 and 150 people and shared either insights about their own company, so basically a pitch, or at least their appreciation for Professor Jackson. And so I went up there with the intentions to do both, but I ended up just speaking from my heart, and it mostly became a little bit of sharing my entrepreneurial journey in front of the group, like I just did earlier, and then also just giving my thanks to Professor, because ultimately, because of that early rejection, when I gave that pitch in front of his class, I went immediately back down to my seat and sat down defeated. And he came up to me, and this is a conversation that was so impactful in my life. I'll never forget this. He comes up to me, he says, "Ray, that was a really great pitch." He says, "It's okay that nobody raised their hand." I was probably wiping the tears out of my eyes. but he goes, "You know, what defines an entrepreneur is someone that takes calculated risks." He goes, "Are you an entrepreneur, Ray?" He says, "If so, you'll take the calculated risk and you'll start this philanthropic backpack company called Rosa Packs." And I said, "All right, Professor, I'll do it." And so that's when I deployed my $10,000 of savings into Rosa Packs to have those prototypes made. You know, as mentioned earlier, I had that taste of cross-border payments. I had to wire that $10,000 to the manufacturer in Shenzhen or their bank. And that's when I realized that our banking system was broken, because I was forced to wire another 30 to 40% in order to get my inventory, because they said the exchange rate changed during that transaction. I said, "That's not my fault. I just sent you the full 10K like you asked for." And so here we are a decade later, and that's why this company, Ripple Labs, and other entities that are revolutionizing cross-border payments resonate with me, because I was burnt as a 24-year-old, and that life savings that I deployed, that really meant a lot to me. So that moment, that conversation that Professor had, all those things, they carried forward to where I'm at today. And so anyways, I shared some of those moments at the alumni gathering, and I got to hear some really passionate stories from others. And again, there was pizza, there was snacks, treats, drinks. It was a really good time. It was very rapid fire. So some people who had probably gone through those ropes knew, "Hey, let's exchange information. You're interesting. All right, boom, let's go to the next." And I'm like, "Oh, what about let's talk some more?" Because I like learning about people. And so anyways, fortunately, I got invited to enjoy a couple cigars with some of the alumni and Professor Jackson before I believe he took off back home with his family. And it was really nice to just sit back and enjoy a cigar. It's something I've never done, and especially in a little private gentleman's club and with my professor and other alumni, everyone's looking at me like a new kid on the block, and I'm just, hey, you know, I'm excited to be here. So again, you were there in spirit, Travis.
I was there in spirit, and I want to make one small clarification. It's not exactly a gentleman's club. It's 888. It's a cigar
Oh,
lounge.
yo, that's
Yeah.
what I mean. It's
Yeah.
it's for well, gentlemen.
Yeah.
That's
All right.
it's a cigars club. And what was nice is they had like a little a little bar right there in case you wanted a beer or an old fashioned. But so
Right.
I've never other than being in Vegas where you can smoke a cigar in a room. I didn't even know this place existed.
It's a great place. I have a membership there still. I think it's in effect. I don't remember. I live in Austin, like I said earlier.
Yeah.
So it's not like I get to frequent there all that frequently. But yeah, I mean it's great. I mean, you walk in, they have a walk-in humidor. You can go pick a cigar or two.
Oh,
And
it's massive. And so I was talking to the owner for a little while. I said, "Man, this is very cool. It's right across from a restaurant that even my dad insures." And so it's an old part of Fullerton downtown. Live music was all outside. It was a really cool experience. So before I went in there to go enjoy some cigars, I was listening to some live bands right outside, and it was just, it's all about the experience. So it's coming from the alumni. I was in a good vibe, in a good excuse me, sir.
Oh,
it was in a
take
good in good spirits. And so I the our entrepreneurial journey is just is as much just a journey of life. And so I take those little moments and I soak them up as much as possible, like the conversations that I had with the like-minded alumni at the Fullerton gathering, or the Cal State Fullerton gathering, or even when I go and drive past the Anaheim Stadium like I used to in my 20s, going back and forth to school or to the university, or just listening to the live music before going into the cigar. All that stuff there's, I don't want to say there's messages, but there's things that those experiences might unveil a new idea that might shed something great in a conversation, or something even in your own business. And so again, I was just very excited to be present at the alumni gathering, and then invited to 888. It was a wonderful experience. So again, yeah, I hope I didn't. To me, there was nothing but gentlemen and fine people in that
Yeah.
establishment.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's a great place. And I want to hit on something that I think is really important there. I mean, I think having an open mind, kind of embracing everything that comes your way. I mean, you talked earlier about Rosa Packs. You gave that impassioned pitch in the classroom. Nobody raised their hands. Whereas, when I did it and I didn't have that kind of social entrepreneurship bent to my pitch, it was all about a cigar review website. People raised their hands. So I was able to work on that one. But yeah, I mean, maybe we could talk about that a little bit more. I was talking with somebody just yesterday about how people don't talk about failure all that often, but it's kind of, part and parcel with the whole entrepreneurial experience. You make a pitch for something, people don't say yes. We want to work on it with you, or we want to invest in it. You start bringing in inventory from Shenzhen, and you find out that, oh, the $10,000 I transferred wasn't enough, so I need to transfer more. How do you cope with that failure? How do you overcome it?
Well, as a 24-year-old with not a lot of experience as a business owner, and even deploying that much capital, it was difficult. So I had to ask for help from friends and family, and satisfy the gap. So that was difficult to explain why I'm even having to send more money. It felt like I was being strong armed, but that's not the case. That's just the way that the global financial system is piped. And so that was just one of the many failures within the Rosa Packs experience. I wanted to help real young foster kids that were impressionable, like my younger sister, who was at the time, she was now about 6 or 7 years old. But unfortunately, due to I would say legalities, or let's just say foster organizations within the community, only allowed me to support at-risk youth that were 18 and older. So I was only able to help those that were, already young adults. And that was a failure. Well, that was not a failure, because I was still helping a lot of at-risk youth and individuals, but it wasn't what I was really aiming for, because unfortunately some of those kids were taking advantage of some of those field trips and opportunities, not for the best. And so again, those are some of my learning lessons. Getting the backpacks into distribution points like Tilly's, and then getting dropped from Tilly's. That was also a painful experience, because there was no notification or heads up. It was just a cold turkey type of experience, and no further insight. So it made me think, was it the product? Was it me? Was it the idea? I don't know. But sometimes we don't receive an answer, and we just got to move on, or do our best to try and gauge or calculate what might have led to that outcome. But regardless, though, there's again many experiences or failures, many failures, but they're all, like even Professor mentioned, during the alumni gathering, these rejections or failures are just disguised learning lessons if you have an open mind and you're willing to see the silver lining beyond what your ego is telling you. And so again, those are a lot of things that you just have to be mindful of as an entrepreneur, even just a grown up, a human being that's willing to work with whoever, as long as the frequency aligns and you guys have all the right intentions and
Yeah.
in a nutshell, you just being productive and philanthropic is kind of where I default to.
Yeah, no, I think that that's the right way to look at it. I mean, those failures, reconceptualize them as obstacles or learning experiences, and you have to have the grit to move forward, right? I mean, and I think that's something that you exemplify.
Yeah, grit is one of the biggest qualities that I think any entrepreneur needs to really hone in on or hammer home. Again, rejection is always part of the game. In insurance, I can't tell you how many calls I'd make throughout the day, just get hung up on, or just tell to, no, we're not interested. But it's a numbers game. So the more calls you make, the higher percentage that you'll get that one yes. And so, but what's great is now being on back on my entrepreneurial journey 100%. It's like even going to the alumni gathering, I meet somebody like Adam Lavoie, who's a artificial AGI specialist, and now I'll be doing an in-person interview with him at a former client of mine who runs a production studio in North Orange County. So we'll meet halfway. We'll do an in-person interview in a professional studio. It's going to be great content, and I'm looking forward to collaborating with him. And because I know that he's aspiring to be a KOL within his vertical, and so I'm all about the future of finance that intersects with AI, tech, and a whole bunch of stuff. And so I said, hey, if you want support, I'm looking for somebody that can be a voice on behalf of that sector. Let's collaborate and see what kind of synergies are between us. And so we're going to collaborate next week. But that's where I'm getting at, is you just don't know what might come out by just showing up. And so that's what I do. 80 to 90% of this game is just showing up and making sure your intentions are pure. And so that's where I'm just making sure again, that's where I play, Travis.
Yeah, no, I know JJ has said that many times in class. I remember it. I was one of his students as well. And just showing up is 80 to 90% of it. It really is. If you've done the work, if you put in the effort, as long as you show up and you show up on time, you were here actually a little bit before I was. You showed up 10 minutes early, so I won't castigate myself too much for that.
Hosting these live stream events myself, I typically get on 15 minutes. I got to set up the lights and things of nature, so it's only by habit. I apologize, sir.
No, I try to show up, but 5 to 10 minutes early. I was showing up a little bit earlier, but my setup is a lot easier. As you can see, I have that fake background. It's just a looping video from my old office at Cal State Fullerton.
Don't worry, I got that fake hair on my head. I'm just
Man, you're gonna have to let me know where you got that fake hair, because I've been missing it for about the last 40 years. So, whatever help you can give on that front, I'll appreciate it. Really appreciate it.
We'll do that. We'll do that following this interview. I don't spill all my secrets.
Perfect. Okay. So yeah, I'll make sure not to link to that in the description. But I will really appreciate it. You said you were going to do an interview with Adam Lavoie. I just did one with him about a week or two ago.
Yep.
Great guy. Tons of information, really insightful about generative AI and everything that's involved with that. So you're really going to love that one.
Yeah, he also spoke at the alumni gathering, and I got to cool. I filmed him when he was up, thinking that, hey, this guy's interesting. Maybe there's an opportunity where we do collaborate. And so I even have media that I'll inject into that interview that will also showcase his skill set, talents, and expertise. So again, I don't have professional equipment other than I use an iPhone 16 and a 15 and a GoPro. Those are that's my cameras that I use. I have a tripod for my iPhone. But anyways, where I'm getting at is, and I have meta glasses, so the little glasses that you can just start filming. So that's what I was using to film Professor. I filmed Adam with my iPhone, just holding it on my knee. But typically, I use a tripod in those circumstances. But this was on the fly. I didn't know what the environment was going to be like, but I had to be opportunistic given those circumstances because one, I'm in this business to create content, and we are moving into this creator economy, this attention-based economy, and creating where I can take us into a conversation, Travis, where
Oh yeah.
the reason why I started a media agency after parting ways with Linqto is because I believe this is one of my passions. I'd say I'm excelling within this domain of practice, being able to storytell and do so in a way that resonates with an audience that consumes my content. You know, there's 8 billion people in this world. They're all got to basically have a smartphone in their hand. They're all consuming content. I'm sure there's going to be a small percentage out of there in that world that resonates with some of the information that I'm broadcasting. And so by just, again, showing up, taking that first initiative, creating that YouTube channel, putting that first video and taking those early steps, I mean, that's all part of the process. We just got to take our first step and jump into the pool. And so because this is what I do, I'm always thinking, man, even with family outings, I document everything because we have smartphones and cameras in our hand, and those level the playing field for everybody. I mean, I'm creating content that's not as comparable as my friends that own the production studios at all, but I'm still reaching audiences similar of similar reach or even greater because it's consistent. I've been dedicated to this craft. I've been building relationships and networking for the past 5 years now, tirelessly, 24 hours a day, 365. I mean, again, this is all also underpinned by passion. I'm on the pursuit of passion, so I enjoy doing this. I'm really just documenting, as mentioned, my experiences in life. And I recommend, like I told everybody at the alumni gathering, we all have a smartphone in our hand. It's leveled the playing field for all of us. And all we got to do is just be, I guess, open to humility. I think some people are shy, thinking that maybe there's people that are going to judge them. But again, I think sometimes we just need to look past that. And because some of the information, or like I would tell to some of those in the audience that are even still at school, not only show up, sit in the very front, no distractions, consume the content, and then I would say capitalize on it, record it, broadcast it as long as it's, within public domain. You're not within any private spaces. So again, there's just things you also need to legally be mindful of when also navigating these
Right.
spaces. And so again, I can keep ranting, Travis. What else would you like me to discuss, sir?
No, I think that is a critical thing to talk about because the way that business is done today is a lot different than it was, even when we were growing up, right? I mean, for most businesses, they would communicate through ads, even printed ads. That's gone now, pretty much. I mean, it still exists, but it's shrinking. The way that like Coca-Cola used to communicate was, give the world a Coke, and they would have a really nice produced commercial that would come out, and they would spend hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars on it. But that's changed significantly. Now it's more about, like what you were saying, authenticity, honesty, and people want to have that kind of a connection with the brands that they are working with. And I think that is something that you've really tapped into. And
Yep.
then, just talking about the technology really briefly, when we were coming up, you would have to spend a lot of money to do it. Now you can just use your phone. And it really does have maybe even more of an impact than something that is really slickly produced.
Yeah,
Because
because now you can just seamlessly, boom, put it online, real time, and that there's I mean that those capabilities are, I mean that's why I'm excelling. I'm sacrificing here, but I'm boom, boom, boom. Just, uh, I would say not raising the bar. There's a lot of people in this space. There's a lot of room for people within this domain as well. So it's not just because I'm here, it doesn't mean that I'm boxing out the area. There's so much room. There's so much money floating around this world, quadrillions. And all we got to do is just start playing in global markets if we really want to start playing with the big dogs. But just, there's going to be a lot of learning lessons along the way. Uh, so yes, having an open mind, but also being mindful to be reserved and conscious and present so that when you make decisions, they're calculated and they're not influenced by anyone other than yourself. And so, like we all have to do our own research and come to our own conclusions, and that not only applies to investing but in everything in life. And so again, our investment journey, our entrepreneurial journey, our life journey is all interconnected, and it's just, as mentioned, it's a beautiful thing. So I love this. I'm appreciative of the entrepreneurship program at Cal State Fullerton. I know that it was probably relatively young, even when I was going at Cal State Fullerton. The Mahalo Hall, or the building, was recently built, and so now just to go and walk on campus and to see how much even around the campus at Cal State Fullerton is just crazy. To me, coming from recently traveling from not only Singapore, but Dubai and all these other cities worldwide, I'm starting to see even, I can't wait to see skyscrapers in our backyard here. Just, it's just an amazing time. I was just having a flashback moment. I was in Dubai for Token 2049 about a month ago, and I was up at the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world. And you know what I was doing up there? I was creating content, Travis. I was making content, taking advantage of that moment so I could say, I'm in the tallest part of the world, in the heavens above, just like the fintech companies that are tokenizing all the real world assets like stocks, bonds, real estate. So it was unique. It was genuine. Like you mentioned, authenticity is key. I did an interview at another conference called Tokenize This in New York City at the Glass House. It was beautiful. And a gentleman who had all this beautiful gear interviewed me. And I said, wow, this is awesome. I don't ever really get to do or use equipment like this because I'm only using an iPhone. But I feel like what's really helping me is because I'm just communicating in a way that's authentic, genuine, excited, and people like that. And so, again, I'm just being me, and thankful that I'm able to keep this mindset. But there's at the Cal State Fullerton alumni gathering, there was a gentleman that was also from I would say he was from the mental health department at Cal State Fullerton. And we were talking a little bit. I might have him on the channel as well, because man, since there's a lot of rejection and failure in entrepreneurship or in any business, and mental health for men is something that isn't discussed enough. Even this entrepreneurship journey, like when I interviewed John Bradley Jackson, it can be dark. There's a lot of depression. There's a lot of dark moments, lonely moments, especially when we're by ourselves, pioneering our own paths. And so it was just great to cross paths with people like the gentleman that was at Cal State Fullerton and others. And so, again, mental health is something it's not talked about enough. And for me, it's something that I also need, that I take seriously and try. I have a sauna in the garage. I go and do workouts regularly, long distance runs, and listen to music, play the piano behind me. That's another form of meditation that I take very seriously, that I like to play now alongside with my daughter, and doing things that I enjoy that distract me from the day-to-day grind. But I haven't been able to do that because I'm really focused on building my brand. So I'm looking forward to this upcoming surfing trip that's around the corner next month with some buddies of mine, and that'll be my way of disconnecting. Yeah.
That is all beautiful advice. Speaking of advice, we've talked about everything that's on my list, but the last thing I want to bring to you is what advice do you give to students when you talk with them, maybe at like the alumni event or elsewhere?
Well, I kind of mentioned this briefly, unorthodoxly, earlier in the conversation. As a student, I would think it's really important to sit in the very front row. I'm I'm an individual that's easily distracted. And so sitting in the very front row forced me to pay attention, to be engaged, to ask questions. So I mentioned this briefly earlier in the conversation, but asking questions is very important. If you don't know what's going on, it's not only going to benefit you, it's going to benefit more likely others in the class. So sometimes if you feel embarrassed, swallow your pride, raise your hand, ask the questions you don't know, because it'll lead to further discussion and maybe even a new friendship or contact, because could be one of your peers that say, hey, thanks for asking that question during class. I was thinking the same thing, or I didn't know that. And now you have a new friend. But ultimately, again, asking questions, being humble is very important. And so I think your entrepreneurial journey will always be there, walking right alongside you. There's no need to rush. The Ripple CEO, Brad Garlinghouse, when I was talking to him in Singapore 2 weeks ago, I asked him, because I wanted to interview him. I had to go through his team, but unfortunately, just they're not doing in-person interviews at the time. So, but I still took advantage of the opportunity when I saw him in person to say, hey, Brad, I know I can't interview you, but I'd love to ask you a question, entrepreneur to entrepreneur, or professional to professional. What would you recommend for someone like me who wants to be as successful as you? What traits do you recommend? What are some key qualities? And I kept rambling like I've been doing on this conversation throughout this interview the whole time,
You're
Travis. And
doing great.
he goes, Brad goes, Ray. He goes, well, first you should listen more than you talk. And I said, what'd you say, Brad? And he cracked up. But he goes, you know, a lot of people are racing for success. You know, even myself included. I want to get to the top. But even when you get to the top, then you have the Microsofts, the Googles, the Amazons, all ready to knock you off, like Professor said at the alumni gathering. But anyways, back to Brad's comment. You got to just slow down. Success is gonna come to you. And so as long as you are just true to yourself and open-minded, and you're doing your homework, you're doing your research, you're putting in your work, you got skin in the game, things will work out for you. And so you just have to be optimistic and live in that mindset. And so always force yourself to smile. That creates endorphins, that helps you mentally. So I try to do that as well. This world is quickly going digital. So I think for those that have the entrepreneurial spirit and drive to run their own business, be mindful of AI, be mindful of new technologies that can tap into global markets or social platforms, incorporate those into your business model. As entrepreneurs, we need to adapt. We need to adapt quickly too. So I also think because of the way the world's moving, it seems like middle class is getting hollowed out, unfortunately. So I think as individuals, we need to be hungry and thoughtful of creating and generating multiple revenue streams. And that could be by incorporating social media to create, as mentioned, creating brands around ourselves, getting ad revenues, helping companies that align with either your investment thesis, you really love their products, or you are you align with their brand in general. So I think ultimately just aligning ourselves with like-minded communities or brands that we're already communicating or consumers with is very important. So, and last thing, if you got a smartphone in your hand, take advantage of it. And especially if you live here in the United States, we live a lifestyle and quality that's so much, unfortunately, better than a lot of people worldwide. So that already puts us ahead of so many. And I don't think people think about just the opportunity and privilege that we have as being Americans. And so I'm thankful to be here. Thanks, Travis.
Well, that was beautiful, Ray. And where can people find you?
Thank you for that, sir. You can find me on all socials. It's Ray Fuentes IO, like my website, rayfuentes.io. I suggest those that are interested in learning more about me, go to rayfuentes.io. You'll also learn about some really interesting things from the token gating, some basically new technologies underpinned by blockchain, distributed ledger technologies. You're able to tie in your Web3 wallets even into my website, and then purchase NFTs that can be tradable within your Web3 wallets, or even purchase memberships that unlock digital experiences as well as IRL experiences. So there's a lot of new ways that even as entrepreneurs can generate revenues. So advertisements, new products that are being developed, aligning with brands. Again, so for those that want to learn more, go check out rayfuentes.io or follow me across all socials, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter is now known as X. YouTube is Ray Fuentes IO. Thanks, Travis.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Ray.
Hey, you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.